As we continue on with our study of the Taittiriya Upanishad, we got one word looked at in the first half. That was the first word of chapter 1, lesson 7, meditate. So we went through almost all of the types of meditation in the form section. Saguna Brahman, God with form. Because Ramakrishna often told us God is with form, God is beyond form. But remember, God is beyond both form and formlessness as well. So in order to be careful not to limit that, Brahman, Allah, Almighty Father, Tathagata Garbha, Pragyaparam, Yahweh, all the names that have been given it, is to take care not to limit it, but also to realize that form and formlessness are concepts in the mind. The mind is everything, my child. Holy Mother said that. The mind is everything, my child. At this stage of the game, it's very important. So people are trying to transcend the mind, but probably you might think that in many ways we're trying just to stuff all these fives back in the mind. That is, make the connections and know that all of this came out of the mind. Settle that matter for good. Forget calling God a creator, give that one up, and know that the mind is projecting. We want to replace creationism with projectionism, because that's the fact of the matter, and because simply you can't create something out of nothing. Everything came out of your deep sleep state, seeded state. All the seeds are there for it eternally. You can't destroy anything, you can't create anything. You're never born, you never die. These are non-dual axioms of most religions, really, but specifically in Advaita Vedanta. So finally coming to face off with these, accept them, be them, own them, as they say, possess them. This is my, not only my default zone in Maya, but this is the truth of the matter. And so once we get there, then we realize how important the mind is and how everything comes out of it, and everything then must be dissolved back into it. What should the yogi do with his mind and his projections? Should dissolve them all. Should let them rise, then dissolve them all like bubbles into water, is the quote out of the Ashtavakra Samhita, or Avadhuta Gita. So, with that as a reminder, then these meditations on form and with form, beyond form, can go on. Let's look quickly at these in the category of Nirguna Brahman. Anytime you see that Sanskrit prefix, nirvana, nirguna, nirvikalpa, you'll know that it means just rendered extinct, blown away, as it were, like a candle blown out. The mind, its mind's thought process, the vrittis, blown out or calmed. And therefore all the karmas and samskaras that are there in the mind also attenuated along with it. It would be a grand move to do if you could affect such a great step. And everyone will have to affect that step eventually. So then what would happen if you finished with all your, so to speak, finished with all your meditations with God and form? Because of course you can always go back to them, and probably will. If the Trinity appears, you'll have to take form back, you see. Take that back, as I said last night. What will happen then, you'll come to a if thine eye be single kind of state where you have this Tailadarajan. Tailadara just means pouring one from oil into one container into another. So you've got this beautiful sesame oil or something, sesame seeds that you never knew was in seeds. There's this beautiful oil. See, that's a Vedantic, Upanishadic metaphor. So you've got this beaker of sesame oil, and you pour it without splashing, without perfect rainbow arc, as it were, right into the other beaker. So that's, your meditation, you're pouring your consciousness of your beaker, body-mind mechanism beaker, into the formless Brahman, into this vaster container. So that's a kind of free-form meditation where there's the fives have already been taken back in, and God's play and scriptural wisdom and all that is all just the stuff of that now. And it's been so refined, like down to pure sesame oil, and now you're just going to pour it back to God, which is its ultimate source. It's not its source, it's its ultimate source. In other words, Brahman is not the cause for anything. You cannot look at the world and say, oh, God caused this. That's another misnomer that Vedanta wants to correct. God's not the cause of anything. It's the ultimate source of everything. But a cause is the word. And Christ had that right on. But I don't think, the Christian fathers followed quite his gist, you see, his drift. That origins means the word, but beyond origins is the Father. You see, that reality is originless, non-originated. Everything actually is non-originated. I was saying that last night. It's all formless, then it comes into form. So we have to inspect the power that brought it into form. Mind, basically. Mind, intellect, complex. On a vast level. First cosmic, then collective, then individual. Everyone's responsible for their own individual projection. Karma hell to pay for that if you're not, you see. And then there's the collective, which you really can't do very much about. If there's a whole bunch of souls that are flowing towards the ocean of samsara, what can you do? You see, if there's millions of souls that are suffering, what can you do? Whatever you can do, you do. Accomplish if you can. But when it gets to the level of collective mind, then, like Vivekananda, you say, God bless them all, but save me from them. God bless them all, but save me from them. If they won't go toward the cosmic mind, and they keep going to the individual mind in ignorance, then what can I do? You see, even a great Nitya Siddha, Ramakrishna called Vivekananda. He is the perfect soul, the Nitya Siddha, the eternally perfect. So, even if you have a soul like that on earth, and remember I said, he like Buddhism, you see, he was the most recent miraculous phenomena of the world. We're just catching up to him a little bit. He changed the minds of 1,000 beings, made them renounce the world. Who could do that? Did Christ do it? Did Buddha do it? Buddha had some 500 arhats, you see, by the time he passed. Maybe even after he passed. But to convince thousands of young men and some young women to give up the world, you see, to even come to the West and have Nivedita and other people, drop their lives, see this man, drop their lives and go to India and follow him. Just drop everything. You see, that's a huge undertaking and a huge accomplishment. You look at the history of religion, where did that happen, you see? That it didn't take 500 or 1,000 years to do so, but in one lifetime. So, this is the power of Divine Mother in things when it gets fully recognized and utilized. So, he says here, the powers of the mind should be concentrated and turned back upon itself to penetrate its innermost secrets. The great powers of the mind on all levels need to be concentrated upon and turned back inside upon itself. Therefore, meditate on air, earth, fire, water, ether, fourfold mind. You see. Why are you meditating on it? Yes, you want to take account for it, but there's a prana flowing through it. What's behind the prana? Mother Shakti. Can I grab that dynamism and turn it towards transformation? And if I can, then I will become Vivekananda or Ramakrishna, you see. I'll have her full force, unbridled. See, and I'll turn that on humanity, you see, and cause people to wake up by the thousands. Even after I've gone, people will gather in my name, you see, and they will individually move towards enlightenment, towards a liberation which they already have, but which they don't know about yet. That's how Vedanta would have to put that. So the powers of the mind, we even sing about that in one of our favorites. Bono boli bhajakali icha hoy torjaya chari guru data mahamantra vivaneshi japa kori bono boli bhajakali icha hoy torjaya chari guru data mahamantra Divaneshi japa kori, mono bole bhajaka playful mind, meditate on the mystery of Kali using any method you will, you see. And or simply just breathe in day and night her sacred name. Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali. Because this holy name has been given to you by the Guru, he planted a secret seed in your heart, see. And now you must water it with the tears of your devotion. See? So that's turning the powers of the mind back in on itself. Because senses are going out. Do we have to blame the senses for that? Who do we blame for the outgoing senses? See? You? Fire? The object? You're to blame. The mind. The mind is doing that with its lack of will, its lack of intelligence, its lack of non-duality, its penchant for duality, and its scattered thoughts, chitta, ahamkara, buddhi, and manas. You see, fourfold mind, problematic. God's mind stands behind, it won't turn to it, you see, and get the teachings from Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the great sattvic mind, you see, cosmic mind. We all heard about God's mind probably in high school, even in the West. Oh, God has a mind too. Wow, that's a profound thought, man. Go back behind the school and, talk about it. So, you hear about God's mind, but to actually turn towards it, realize it, what's there, and account for it, count it into the cosmic process as the hub, as the source. Cosmic mind is actually sometimes equated with Om. It's equated with Mahat, the great mind. It's equated with Haranyagarbha, the shining cosmic egg out of which everything comes. There's different names, Pradhana and so forth, that have direct correlation. Even unmanifested Prakriti, they became so generalized, you see. Unmanifested nature is in God's mind. It's not in Brahman. It's in, because deep sleep is not in Brahman. Brahman never sleeps. But your deep sleep, the deep sleep of thousands of beings, where all the seeds are, that could be equated to where all of nature comes from. Unmanifested Prakriti is you might say, that pool of insentient matter that Lord Brahma at the time of the first cycle breathes upon and causes it to wave, you see. Both the Bible, the Rig Veda say that. Breathed upon the waters in the beginning, waves happened, that was the beginning of things. So, turn your mind into a beaker of pure water or pure oil, see, and then pour it into Brahman without the slightest break. Do it for an hour, twice a day. Do it for a half hour in the morning. Or Patanjali, the father of yoga, says, do it for 11 seconds and you'll be in samadhi. If you can stop the mind thinking for 7 to 11 seconds, father of yoga calls that a minor samadhi. But of course, the minute you try and then you're having the thought of trying to not think for 11 minutes, you see. So it's a very subtle thing. Probably a better way of approaching it is just purify the mind till it just stays in a naturally peaceful state and meditate every day with that mind. Render everything into a oneness and just meditate happily, contentedly. And be patient to wait for that aha moment, that epiphany. See. Like the man in the wilderness that saw a bear, see, had a Kodiak moment. That's a Kodak moment. So, anything, like Sri Ramakrishna said, man fires a gun for the first time. He's like awestruck. That moment. Man sweeping. Someone comes in and says, your father just died. Drops the broom. That moment. A moment when everything is just stilled and you're just vaulted out of yourself and out of everything else. See? So in the meantime, practice it as a flow. Tyler Darjan, make your whole life flow into that. So Vivekananda's quote. Now, Swarupajan, meditation on the inner self. This is where things get very beautiful, but also very subtle. Ati Sukshma, the subtlemost of the subtle, is a very nice word. Lord Buddha says, the self is master of the self. Who else can this master be? With the finite self subdued, one obtains the sublime refuge, most difficult to achieve. Like the razor's edge path or the pearl of great price. Most difficult to achieve. So its difficulty is subtle. It's not struggle, like effort, like we would think of in a physical sense, but just effortlessness. But finding that subtle balance, very, very difficult to find. It's that mark which you have to hit that I chanted about this morning. So meditate on Swarupa, your inner self, your inner essence. This all has to do with Nirguna Brahman and the acreate realm. That's a word coined by Vivekananda. Brahman is acreate. No, it has anything to do with creation. It's acreate, it's the opposite. There's also another little tiny note here that you might have missed. All this is projection, but all this is dissolution. So the dissolution of the mind stream is going to happen, you see. The disappearance of chit happens, you see, right about there. Thinking. And one of the things along the way then is meditation on Brahman. Once you meditate on the self, then you can equate it with Brahman. What's the difference between Brahman and Atman? Why do you have two words for reality? They always ask us. Brahman is that nameless, formless, unsuperimposed reality, the Swarupa. But Atman has decided to identify, or at least associate with, the five coverings: body, energy, prana, mind, intellect, and ego. So it's having an association with those. It's playing with nature. The soul's playing with nature. They can be good playmates if the soul realizes it's not nature, and that it can put nature away. Vivekananda had a quote about that, which he often used. He said, the only proof of your not being body and nature is by putting body and nature away. See? Transcending them and meditating without them, knowing that you exist without them. So that Atman is ceasing its identification with that, then it is Brahman. Sort of like water in a jar taken from a lake and capped off. The water is the same as in the lake, but in the jar is that. Necessarily the water inside the jar is having to identify with that jar as its covering, as its container, as its sheath, as its sharira, as its kosha. Like the frame of a picture, or the skyline on the sky, it frames the thing. Sky is never, altered, but a horizon is created by mountains. So that's a false superimposition that there's such a thing as an actual horizon. Or the moon, gets eaten by a dragon at night. You see, Rahu is his name, and so the moon shrinks. You see, and then Rahu actually gets indigestion the next month. You see, it spits it up by chunks. That's how they used to believe. But you can't look up in the sky and say, "Oh, what a beautiful half moon." You'd be transgressing the truth there. So then meditation on Brahman itself, Shankara says, remain quiet, indifferent to the body, and by that one thought of Brahman, become one with Brahman. Those who meditate on heart of a saint get what's in the heart of a saint. The same with Brahman. Those who meditate on Brahman after the mind has become pure, they'll merge themselves in Brahman, just like a hailstone falling in an ocean. And if you want that in stages, that's the other kind of formless meditation I found listed in the scriptures and by description of the seers. Laya Chintaya Dhyan. Laya means dissolution, Chintaya, of course, of consciousness or thinking, and Dhyan, meditation. So you're meditating to actively achieve immersion, and it's going to go through stages, like stages of merging. That's why people are coming out of samadhi and going back in, like Sri Krishna. Come out, look at you, what's your name again? Even if you're his wife or his best student. What's your name again? Because he just came out of samadhi and ego is all gone. And he needs a little while to get it back, you see. As if it was some covering or some kosha that he poured himself into, and then he took himself and poured himself in the other direction, you see. So then he's going to have to do that by stages. And these stages are bhuta laya chintaya jan. Bhuta means objects and bodies, planets, even ghosts and spooks. Every Sanskrit word has like 3 or 4, even more words to it. So it's transcending everything of the physical world, the bhutakasha, the akasha where thought has become solidified into objects. And then antakarana laya chintaya jan. That's a 10-syllable Sanskrit word, if you like long words. Antakarana laya chintaya jan. That is finally dissolution of all 4 aspects of the mind. You see. Is it 11? Well, it needs to be turned to 11. 10 won't do it. So antakarana means the inner cause, and we know it's 4 things: thought, ego, intelligence, and dual mind, or the fourfold mind. Antakarana, they call it, as if to leave no doubt that it's the mind that is the cause of everything, not God, not devil, not your ancestors, not nature, nothing else. The mind itself causes all this, and that's why you want to dissolve it back and have no mind, or pure mind, or Buddha mind, however you call it. So dissolve every one of those. And in this type of meditation of 5s, and where he's saying here that you're going to dissolve fire, air, moon, sun, water, stars, herbs, trees, ether, one's body, the 5 pranas, the 5 constituents of the body called skin, flesh, muscle, bone, marrow, and then the 5 senses, and that kind of meditation where you are concentrating on each of them in order to find their cause, and as you find their cause, that's when they're dissolved. You can then conclude they have been dissolved, you see. It's not like putting dirt in water and getting mud, you see. The first scientific experiment of the cavemen, you see. Ugh, more. See. But this is an inner experience, you see. And now they have been dissolved, you see. I've seen them go into their next component. In other words, he declared that the whole universe is based on these 5s, and one set of 5 gives rise to the other, and also preserves the other. So you can destroy the outer 5, but the inner 5 will remain. You can destroy the outer cause, but the inner cause will remain. You can destroy everything in the waking state, but the deep sleep state will remain. You can destroy the body, but the mind that creates all bodies will remain, you see. That's the meaning of the word eternity on all levels. Brahman's eternal, you are eternal, nature is eternal, and yes, unfortunately, Maya too is eternal. The only thing that they would change about that last statement is that Maya does have an end in moksha. Shankara says. So that type of meditation, remember, we're not disassociating the charta meditation from the actual sloka of the rishi who is telling you how to do that kind of meditation, how they did it. You see, when they had time for it. See, for them it wasn't, I don't have time to do it. It's the time is now, and actually I have to do this every day. Once I know that everything's dissolved, then any projections that come out, I have to dissolve them quickly, or karma will be there, you see, possible, and samskaras could be knit in the subconscious mind. So I'm not taking any chances with that. I'm going to keep everything flowing, I'm going to keep everything free, I'm going to keep everything empty, I'm going to keep everything even, I'm going to keep everything peaceful, I'm going to keep everything content, I'm going to keep everything blissful, and I'm going to keep it as the truth that it actually is, at all times. See, I won't settle for anything less. Nah, nah, nah. Now, the final kind of immersion is Omkara Laya Chintaya Jan. We just sang it, right? Jaya Shiva Omkara Bhaja Shiva, Omkara. Brahma Vishnu Sadashiva Jaya Jaya. So Omkara is that original cause. Kara means cause, Om means the word. So the word is the original cause. It's the cause even beyond the mind. You see, Om would come first. Out of the word, everything else would spill. And John had to understand that in meditation at Gethsemane in order to be able to give his testament of what Jesus said. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. So the quote there was Shankaracharya again, when the mind is completely absorbed in the Supreme Being, Brahman, the world of appearances vanishes. And Ramakrishna made a similar statement when he said, the further you go towards Brahman, the farther away you go from the world. And everything I had heard up to that time was a complaint about that. No, when we go in Samadhi, we're taking the world with us. That's, you see, they think they can take it with them, right? They think they can take bodies, ancestors, money, cars. They think they can take it all with them. What they don't know is it's already theirs all the time. And they can project it any time they want in their own private dream. And if you like to fantasize, then try fantasizing meditation, see. But what they don't know is that the line of demarcation there dissolves completely and you go into total formlessness. The further you go towards Brahman, the further away you will have to leave the world. Sri Ramakrishna said, the further you go toward the east, the further away you go from the west. Which might be a good idea at this time, at least inwardly. Find true east, you see, and go there. Because that's where I'm broadcasting from, you see, true east. Nothing in the West appealed to me. Well, maybe Western classical music a little. Now, let's move on. That's how I have unwrapped this lesson 7 of chapter 1 of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Give you some grounds and some information on meditation so you may practice it, you see. If you have the time in this busy world to do that kind, why meditate on a crystal when you can meditate on all of Earth, which includes gold, silver, trees, see. Take something that's a noble and worthy pratika, you see, whether it's physical or mental, and take it up, you see, and pull it apart, look at it, and come to the right conclusion about it, and then dissolve it all back into yourself from where it came. The mind is doing that so quick we don't know. So we have to slow down the process and see where it's coming from. And you, like Buddha looking at time, you see, he saw this long line. But then he got up higher. Oh, I think I see it curve. See? Got up higher. It definitely curves. And not only does it curve, it comes back under me, behind me, and connects. You see. Oh, I'm on a wheel of time. I think I'll call that the Kala Chakra. You see. A wheel of time. It's not rocket science. Time is a wheel, is a cycle, and it repeats itself. So that Krishna has to come not just once to give the Gita, but hundreds and thousands of times through these cycles in order to just get a few people off the wheel. The rest are clinging to it like it's a merry-go-round, see. And they're having fun. We're shopping. See. We're having fun here. Get in, my dad used to say, drop us off the swimming pool. Now get in there and have that fun. Damn pleasure lover. So he was kind of a monk and hidden monk, you see. So we've looked at this, and let's move on to the end of this sloka. So he says, meditate on the 5 pranas, meditate on the 5 constituents of the body. That's called by Buddhists, that would be called the cremation ground. They have another word for it, cremation ground meditation. Charnel pit, thank you. Charnel pit meditation. like a tantricist would go to the graveyard and find a dead body and sit on it at night to get rid of aversion and fear and so forth and be done with that for all time. So, in the same way then you're supposed to meditate on all the constituents of your body. And meditate on them becoming ash, and so forth. 5 pounds of ash, as Holy Mother said in the end. So you really just kind of take the body-ego complex together and in one fell swoop you just humiliate it, you see. Self-abnegation. And so it can get out of the way and you can see your true self, which is waiting for you. So then the seer that revealed this by intuition, having grouped together the various objects, declared that everything exists in sets of fives. That would be showing something like this, which is a new chart, but nonetheless, if I even put it up here, oh, it is right there, right in front of my face, you see. So there is that quintessential quintuplications I talked about. And we went through that once before, but it's good to bring it back 2 visits later in this Dharma teaching to really give you the whole, pretty much the whole sets of fives that you're talking about. There are more, but these are more of the quintessential ones. And we can also move through those rather quickly because they're, as the seer says here, known to all. See, the seer opens up a cosmic vision through this principle of 5 based on facts known to all. So some of us know that there's 5 elements. We don't even think about them, but we still know it. Others think about them. They're called chemists and biologists, and they like play with them, you see, study them. Others look at the 5 elements, and they say, oh, those go with the 5 senses. And those go with the subtle senses in dream tonight. And they connect the connections. So they're known to all, but not all people know what they signify, you see, what their significance is. So in that way, the human form becomes a marvelous map of quintuplications. And there you see it. The 5 koshas, for instance. Body, annamaya kosha, prana, pranamaya kosha, mind, manomaya kosha, intelligence, vijnanamaya kosha, and the ego or bliss self, anandamaya kosha, across the top. Called the Pancha koshas, the 5 sheaths. One of the Adara system, it's called in Vedanta. Very ancient way of telling you how you have coverings over your Atman, and therefore you can meditate them away, and should meditate them away every day, so that you don't become identified with them. Going from the top down, here's the cosmic mind put together with the fourfold mind, which equals 5. See, that's chitta, thought, manas, mind, buddhi, intellect, and the ahamkara, ego, put together with the mahat, the great mind that we just talked about. That's a 5-fold hub of all projectionism. And therefore also what sustains, as he says here, one set of 5 preserves the other. See? So they're like guards for each other. They're foundations, they're stasis, they're unimpeachable, is a good word. They stand as guards, sentinels for one another. So that's at pretty much the top of it. Then I just put in here the 5 kinds of space. Also the 5 Russian dolls, because we have that chart with one fits back into the other. So the outer, the little tiny doll, would be the Bhutakasha with all of the Panchakashas with all of the elements and objects and everything in it. And then the next space that beyond the atomic particle you'd have to go would be inward. That's where your inward life really begins, where Christ says you need an inner life to the fisherman. And in order for that, you're going to have to know that man doesn't live by bread alone. In other words, not prana is there, not just food. There's prana associated with food. So you take that prana and you see it, you account for it, and you meditate, he says here, on prana, vyana, apana, udana, and samana, the 5 forms of prana, which are one prana. And there's a chart there two that we could look at eventually. You see, there's one prana in 5 forms, Vivekananda calls it, Eka prana. And the 5 pranas and how they move inward to various levels of mind, sadhana, mantra, and so forth. Yeah, it's a chart we've looked at before. All leading towards Kundalini Shakti or Tejas or Atman, however you describe it in your particular tradition. This is all moving towards an apex. And these pranas are very key in that. That's why Vivekananda said, you don't know about the prana yet. And Christ said, you don't have an inner life. You see, and you don't know about your dharma I, Buddha said, because there are blocks. And that's basically founded on lack of knowledge of inward moving force. We always say, oh, I meditate on my inner self, you see, or I go inward. But we haven't accounted for what takes us inward. Therefore, we haven't mastered inwardness yet, which would be the fruit of meditation, wouldn't it? Not just trying to meditate every day, but the fruit of meditation. So I have my 5 little ducks in a row many times over, you see, and I know about them, and I can utilize them. That's how Dalai Lama would get in and out of his 14 lifetimes consciously with a system such as this. If you want to take a current example, or Swami Vivekananda in the 1800s. So don't forget the 5 kinds of space are also in there. Now on either side, 5 subtle elements and 5 senses of cognition, you see, are there, all connecting. I'm connecting it to Sri Ramakrishna's fingers, and then the 5 elements and the 5 senses of action to his toes, to sort of bring toward that point that we're reminding ourselves all the time that this set of 5s is going on. And I gave you that teaching in time. Over the last year or two, I've been concentrating on it more with the dissolution of the mind stream, just in time for this sloka. Remember to note the sloka down there in chapter 1 of the Taittiriya Upanishad, lesson 7, because that's where you get the corroboration from the Upanishad. And I don't think it's mentioned in other Upanishads. I think the Taittiriya has it. So it's very important to use that as a meditation and as a way of accounting for all the elements that are there. It's like Ramakrishna came before you, you're just going to look at him and go into awe. You see, you're going to see his makeup, you see. He knows it all, and he's presenting it to you all consciously. Now you have to take it in consciously. So if you meditated on God with form, wouldn't that be a good meditation? You see, like his thumb is earth, and his first finger is water, and his second finger is fire. You see, he's like the walking cosmos there. He's the Virat form of God, and the cosmic form of God, and the physical form of God all in one. Like Vivekananda said, some of us are Ramakrishna's arms, some of us are his fingers, some of them are his teeth, some of us are hair on his head, you see. So we look at our master like that. The great master, he's called. So, right down the middle, don't forget, the rishis, the gods, the ancestors, the humans, and the animals, insects, and plants are a 5-fold division of beings. So you can put it in terms of sheaths, you can put it in terms of space, you can put it in terms of physique, you can put it in terms of beings. However way you put it, you should put it. And meditate on all of them as the grand cosmic form, see, that signifies the Son by which you get to the Father. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So that knowledge which leads you to truth, which has its end in truth, Sri Krishna says in the Gita. Knowledge must end in truth. It's such a great statement in the Gita. You must know the end of truth, knowledge in truth, Arjuna. Because look at all these people on the battlefield. Look at all the whole world for centuries. Is their knowledge ending in truth? Or is it ending in money? Is it ending in fame? Is it ending in form? Is it ending in deception? Is it ending in damnation? Is it ending in suffering? Is it ending in ignorance? Is it ending in just secular knowledge? Or knowledge of objects? See? It must end in truth. All knowledge must end in truth. It's probably the most pregnant statement about Jnana Yoga in existence, and definitely in the Gita. And a person who knows it, he says about him, Stiti Pragnasya, about 8 times. That's a man of steady wisdom. Stiti Pragnasya. Buddha called reality Pragya. Pragya Param, supreme intelligence. That's how Buddha thought of God. So, I think, we don't have to really go through these 5. You know them: hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling. But these are also rather missing. Just like the 5 pranas are missing from our knowledge, the tanmatras are also missing. And this is why we don't know our dream state. Because if we knew these, then we could account for what happens in our dream state. Of course, the cause of it's going to be the mind dreaming. But what actually appears there are the same elements and senses that you get in the waking state, but in their subtle form. So they have to be kind of move over and insert them in there, right? In your ideology of how everything is. Then you're going to have to create some leverage there, get a tire jack, see, jack the mind away from just senses and objects, and then insert in there subtle objects and subtle senses. And these subtle objects are going to be odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, and audibility. And by that you're going to know where objects come from in the physical sense. They come from a thought, and the active part of it, not the sense of smell itself nor what's being smelled, but the odor. That's the essential part of it, you see. And the flavor, and the power to see, and the power to feel, and the power to hear, Even in a dream, you have that power. It gets subtler and subtler and subtler as you march back in. So I pause there. The rest I say is, the 5 senses of action and the 5 elements themselves. There's the 5 pranas across the middle. And meditating on those 5 pranas is going to be very efficacious for you too. I was just thinking here, as a fitting tribute, we could maybe it's going to be too difficult to find. But all of this then, as a set of 5s, we might as well summate it by reading this. A human being has 5 fingers on each hand, 5 toes on both feet, sports 5 active and 5 cognitive senses as well. The mind is also 5-fold, including dual mind, its thoughts, intellect, ego, and if counted, the cosmic mind that it is a part of. The life force or prana that connects all of these facets is also 5-fold. When accounted for, these sets of 5s convey a broad hint to the soul that the days of its body-mind mechanism are both symbolic and numbered. Hint intended, pun intended. And that meditation on quintuplications is needed. Living beings formulate their bodies amidst the 5 gross elements of nature and play in the dream state utilizing the 5 subtle elements. 5 sheaths unfold and engross them, associated with 5 levels of ether called akashas, that's space. They are subject at birth to the 5-fold aspects of Maya, called name, form, time, space, and causality. And the relationship includes 5 types of beings: animals, humans, ancestors, gods, and rishis. Whether consciously or not, they always live eternally by 5 great spiritual ideals. I have a separate chart on that in order to segue out of that chart into another, but we've seen it before, the 5 essential facts of Indian philosophy. Such things as the self is Brahman, it's eternal, and that kind of thing. And that everything comes out of unmanifested Prakriti. That's an essential fact that we. So the three missing things in here is that we're missing is prana, knowledge of prana in its 5 forms, the tanmatras, the elements that go into our dream state, and then what I just mentioned, unmanifested Prakriti, that there's a seed state, like deep sleep. If I can plug those in to the Western consciousness while I'm alive through these Dharma teachings, I'll be very happy to have been service to Swami Vivekananda, who has all of this inside of him in fully connected form. So that's what you might say in a penultimate ideal I have for Western people, is that they get grounded and seated in these missing 5s, and that will start to make everything more cohesive. You see, meditation smoother, more long-lasting, more satisfying, and work more fulfilling as far as that can go, and knowledge more complete, so that doubts and fears and so forth will come about. Now, while I'm on the trail of that, let me see if I can actually find this so that we can end this chart, and closing in on the end of this class even, in a way that's fitting to this great avatar, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Because we often sing this in our aritis. We sing Om Ring Ritong, we sing the great Hindu arati hymn, and others to remind us of God with form. But it seems to be eluding me. There it is. Remember, because we sing it in this way. Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Rama Krishna, Hari Rama Krishna, Hari. And like a celestial choir that goes on and on with harmonies and humming it, and the women singing it alone, the men singing it alone, and of course here in SRV-dom in the West we've done our best with that, but if you hear it in India sung by say 100 or even 1,000 people, it's quite beautiful, filling the ethers, not only the physical ether but the prana ether from which it's coming, operating by, and the other ethers too, of thought, and right up to the spirit. It compels the spirit, compels you to realize the spirit, just by hearing that simple mantra, Hari Om Ramakrishna. That chart didn't take us long at all. This is the second time we've visited this, but that paragraph, those 2 paragraphs really evince exactly what's in there. There's actually even a chant in the scriptures that says, Om na mana na buddhi na shariram indriyam tanmatram bhutani bhuta panchakam aham kritas chapi virat swarupakam tam isham atmanam upuiti shashvatam. Those 4 lines in the scripture say that one attains to the supreme self, Atman, who dissolves mind, manas, buddhi, intellect, tanmatras, shariras, bodies, indriyas, senses, ego, aham, kritas, chapi, and the 5 elements, all back into the self. That one attains to the Supreme Self who does this process. So do it, as Vivekananda said, either through wisdom, or through devotion, or through meditation, or even through action. You see, by proving yourself that you're none of that. That action and karma is just your field that you're playing in. It's not yourself. All action takes place in nature, not in the self. Prove it to yourself by any of those 4 ways. But do prove it to yourself and end up with the consummate realization and this state of freedom, moksha, or mukti. Now, since it's been 2.5 months since we visited the Taittiriya Upanishad, then I arrived here and we had a weekend of mother teachings. Then we had a retreat on prana and the illusion of death. It's been a long time since we've taken up the Taittiriya. That's why I paused on lesson 7 and reiterated this, because it's very key to the kind of meditation that SRV adherents, devotees, and students are engaging in every morning here at the ashram and at their homes. So with that emphasized, then let's move on and see in the remaining, looks like 15 minutes, lesson 8. Yes, lesson 8. One should contemplate. Colon, you see. So it's basically meditate, last chapter. Now it's contemplate. If you want to take first word of every sloka, it's a kind of an interesting study of any given scripture. Even if it's I, you see, or thee, or that. Very profound. One should contemplate this. Om is Brahman. All this universe, perceived and imagined, is Om. It is universally known that Om is the term of compliance. The priests officiating at the sacrifice direct all duties with the word Om. It is made known to the priests that the gods that the oblation is ready to be offered, starting with Om. So it's like gets everyone to attention, you see. Oh, something profound's about to happen. Those who chant the samas sing, uttering Om. They say it was in the beginning. The priests recite the invocations with Om. Brahma, the Lord, sets sacrifice in motion, uttering Om. The sacrificer authorizes all to begin, and the oblations to be put into the fire by uttering Om. A Brahmana proceeding to recite the Vedas, intending, let me obtain the Vedas, says Om. Assuredly, he attains Brahman. So all of these important things, I was kind of pre-translating as I went there, because a lot of these words are very esoteric and unknown to us. So just to let you know that if there's any kind of sacrifice going on, if there's any kind of ritual going on, whether it's in front of the actual in the temple, in front of the actual fire, home of fire, or whether it's at home, that's all being initiated with the knowledge of Om. See? And I want to make that simple point and move on to this next lesson 9. The practice of what is right and proper is fixed by the scriptural rules and one's own reflection. Now we have reflection, you see. Learning and imparting of the Vedas, truthfulness, religious observances, those things that involve self-denial, self-restraint, tranquility, tending to consecrated fires, offering oblations into fires in the morning, in the evening, hospitality to the guest, accomplishing what is favorable to human welfare, bringing up a family, procreation at the ordained period of time, getting children married. All these conditions should be fulfilled in Om before one gets the power of introspection and the desire for liberation. So the power to look inside and the power to the deep deep-seated, sincere desire to get free of all of it is attained by accomplishing this first. You see, but it has to be accomplished in what? Om. That word has to be first. In the beginning was the word. So if it was in the very beginning of all of this, then it's probably good that you put it at the beginning of all your little worlds, all your little creations, all your little projections, all your little activities. You can pick a flower in the garden without saying Om. See, Ramakrishna wouldn't do anything without keeping that word in mind, and it's a simple practice. And it's simple, but it's profound when you initiate it and think about it in your contemplations, in your meditations, and in your reflections. See, all three. Now, bringing up a family, procreation at the ordained period of time, taking your children to education, getting them married, all that must be done in that spirit of Om. And it's all a kind of fire, you're saying. Again, it's rather hidden, some of the meaning of this, but if you want to bring it to future time, to contemporary time, then you'd have to say that tending the consecrated fires, offering the oblations into the fire daily, morning and evening, is not just doing that in a homa ceremony in a temple. See, everything you do is a fire. How else are you going to dissolve it all? See, so it's one of the best ways of dissolving the fives is to think, I'm dissolving this all in the fire of Brahman, in the fire of yoga. Vivekananda dissolved all his disease he got from helping people into the fire of yoga. Sitting on the tips of the mountains and the Himalayas in the snow in the wintertime with no food and just a scripture, I burn with the fire of yoga. All I need is the fire of yoga to live. Man does not live by bread alone, does not even live by prana. He lives by the fire of yoga. And can do that in the midst of the harshest conditions. That song I started singing in the beginning by Swami Vedananda, he was one of those that walked the Himalayas barefoot in the winter, see, with just a couple cloths, you see. Sleep outside in the wind, just totally impervious to heat and cold and so forth. So that's why we chanted at the beginning of this class, Satyena labhyas tapasa hesa atma samyaginena brahmacharyena nityam. Om Satyena labhyas tapasa, right? Satyena, truthfulness, and tapas, austerity. See, the self is realized by those. Brahmacharyena, it's also realized by moderation. See? And by veracity, and all of them have to be constantly cultivated. So, same here, procreation, bringing up a family, religious observances, your meditation, imparting of the Dharma to worthy students and to children, all has to be done in that spirit of Om. Those are all fires, see, and Om is the bonfire. See. Dissolve it all, see, every day, so that it doesn't cling to you anymore. We took this chart, and this quote up here, I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but this quote up here is the next sloka. So, I am the stimulator of the tree of the universe. My fame is high like a mountaintop, elevated to the most holy. I am the excellent, immortal being as he is in the sun. I am the power, the wealth refulgent with divine intuition. I have attained true knowledge. Imperishable and immutable have I become. Unquote. This is the sacred recitation of Trishanku. Trishanku was a great rishi. So the Upanishad brings this out, after he's given you all these practices and sacrifices and fires and fives and everything, brings this out and says, here's the statement of a man who did this. This is what he says at the end of that great austerity. That's what he'll be saying. That's what he'll be thinking. That's what he'll be meditating. He'll be meditating in that fire, a fire of truth, or a fire of highest knowledge. That was lesson 10, just that sloka, lesson 10. And we went through this chart before. It's on the live streaming, one of the live streaming classes, which are always being posted on the YouTube site of both Advaita Academy and also SRV site. Of course, this one will probably be finished before it's posted, finish the whole Upanishad, but there are many others up there to look at. And people have been writing in saying that they are studying those on their own. Let's take lesson 12, so we'll break new ground today, and tomorrow I want to look at some of the what's called the epithets of Brahman. It's a new chart I have for all of you, so don't miss tomorrow's class. It'll be very much in accord with the latest statement of Trishanku, and more away from the method and more towards the essence of the thing. But in the meantime, they're still instructing us. This lesson 11 then, chapter 1 still, says, having instructed in the Veda, the preceptor advises the disciple, speak the truth, follow the prescribed conduct, be not heedless about the solemn recitation of the scriptures, offer your preceptor the gift liked by him, take care that your line of race is not broken, do not fail to pay attention to truth, never fail to pay heed to the performance of duty, do not be careless about what is proper and good, be not negligent of well-being, never be indifferent to the study and imparting of the Vedas, be mindful of what is to be offered to the gods and to the mains, like your ancestors. Let your mother be a god to you, let your father be treated like a god, let your preceptor receive divine honor, let your guests receive from you hospitality like a god. Those acts that are irreproachable alone are to be performed, and not those that are their contrary. You must be intent on the virtuous actions that proceed from the seers, and never on the contrary. You must not even breathe a word when the noble beings who are more distinguished than others are in session for religious inquiry. You must procure a seat for them and offer them honor and respect at all times. So a lot here, the thing that keeps getting mentioned over and over again is to not be negligent in the scriptures, in the study and the recitation of the scriptures, which is what we've been doing over years in SRV. Now, I recited them this morning, 28 chants in my head when I started meditation. 7 peace chants, 7 wisdom chants, 7 meditation chants, and 7 universal chants. See? So we all have those as our goal for swadhyaya, that is for keeping the memorization, the recitation of the scriptures going day by day. Don't let a day pass. And maybe find a day where you can just spend all the time doing that. What's to speak of letting a day pass, where you can put your mind on the scriptures all the time, or at least run a few of them through your mind in meditation, and maybe even during your drive to work or the bus ride or whatever. You have that penchant, because it's in you. It's like the very fiber of your flesh, you see. Now it's become the very fiber of your mind by meditation, by contemplation, and by reflection. And if that weren't enough, you subjected it all to the fire, the various fires of life, and purified it. And now you're, as it's walking around like a great fire yourself. Let me go back and read the last 3 sentences of Trishanka's, because I was so involved in him, I didn't finish the conclusion, which was actually further concluded in the sloka you just read, but this is very important. Says, the sage, along with Trishanka, there's 3 others, Ratihara, who never swerved from truth, held that truthfulness alone will suffice. Parushisti, who was constant in penance, in penitent thought, that was constant in the penance of thought that devout austerity alone is enough. So one of the sages thinks truthfulness. The other thinks austerity. And Mudgala stressed the study and imparting of the Vedas, That assuredly is tapas. Indeed, that is tapas. So all of those are good. You need them all. But the Upanishad is saying, as it were, that Mugdala hit it on the nail on the head. See, that reciting of the Vedas and passing that wisdom on is true austerity. So you should never be without it. And we are. We are without sacred study. And then what will sacred rites do us without sacred study? And we can pretty much summate it like that. You can go to church as much as you want, but if you don't have the fire that burns away ignorance, which comes from the Dharma, which comes from the truth, then where is everything going? You see, in a cycle only, with no progress. So that's how important, and I started off the class this way. Vivekananda said, the path of Jnana Yoga. He said, it's the hardest path, but it's the swiftest. If you can implement it, much faster than the slow boat to India, which is bhakti, you see. And meditation, like I said, could take a very long time too, especially if your mind isn't ready for meditation through study, through purification. Then meditation, you can meditate 8 hours a day and maybe either not go anywhere or imagine that you're going somewhere. You could go to your friend and say, I meditate 8 hours a day. Sort of like the study of, the story of Sri Ramakrishna told of the two sons who went to, father sent them both to school. And they came back and said, what did you learn? And one son said, watch this. And he walked across the water, walked across the river. And he came back and his father said, So he turned to his other son, what did you learn? He said, practicality. And he went to the bridge, paid 1 cent to the boatman, you see, and had the boatman take him over. And he came back and his father said, you spent 4 years on my money to learn how to walk on water when you can pay a penny, to get across easily, you see. So meditation, service, bhakti, all very good, all very good. But this is a Jnana Yoga class, so we're holding up the torch of Jnana Yoga to everyone, saying how Nahi Jnanena Sudrishyam Pavitramiha Vidyate is how the God of love, Krishna, puts it himself. That there is no purifier in all the worlds, Arjuna, other than knowledge. It's the best of all. See? So it seems like the Upanishads are very much on the same page with Sri Krishna. So here we will end with our chant and return tomorrow at this same time for the Sunday class, which will be the last class of my Portland visit. Om Sato, Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya, Abira Bira Mayeti, Rudrayate Dakshina Mukam, Te Namam Pahinicham, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother of the universe. With thy pure, peaceful, and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.